Surgeons of Reddit. What's the weirdest object you've had to remove from someone's butt? MD, but not a surgeon. On my surgery, we had to remove a mini Nerf football from someone's butt. He kept apologizing and saying he wasn't gay. Later, the attending surgeon told us that it's always the straight guys coming in with stuff up their butts and they always try explaining they aren't gay. I believe it, honestly, because, hey, gay guys would probably know how to stick stuff up there and have it not get stuck. Story 2. We received a patient with horrible pain that felt like constipation. He couldn't poop and laxatives weren't helping. We soon found out that the blockage wasn't just constipation, it was a string of beads, several meters long, that had become tangled into an ugly ball inside. I had to snip it apart and carefully pull pieces of it out. When most of it was out, his butthole became a rocket engine with diarrhea as the propellant. Story 3. Dunno what qualifies as weird anymore. Glass fake dong, vibrating fake dong, travel toothbrush holder, Campbell's soup can, cucumber, Maglite cologne bottle, time capsule, light bulb, aerosol can cap. The oddest one was literally nothing. Guy comes in complaining of something stuck up their butt by a girlfriend. ER doctor feels and nothing's there. X-ray and CT scans say maybe something is there. I don't feel anything. In the operating room, I feel deeper and still nothing. Finally do a full colonoscopy and there's nothing there. Story 4. Girl I know had suspected cervical cancer. Saw 2 different doctors before a specialist examined her surrounded by trainee doctors, grabbed and pulled on what everyone thought was an inflamed, infected, tumorous cervix. It was a toy. It had been in there for 3 months. Story 5. Back when I was an ER tech, we had a guy come in with a full-size bottle of VO5 shampoo up his butt. Of course, he said he fell on it in the shower. You could clearly see it on the X-ray. It was pretty spectacular. The best part was he knew exactly what needed to be done to get it out, suggesting this wasn't his first time. He asked for conscious sedation and for someone to pull it out. Well, the ED doctor tried that and then tried to manually get it out with forceps, and was essentially elbow deep in this dude but couldn't get it. He had to go to the operating room to get it taken out. I bumped into the surgeon a few days later and asked him how it went. He joked to me that, after we knocked him out, I grabbed a plunger out of the bathroom and got it out that way, but then told me all he had to do was stick some suction up there till he felt it connect and then slowly pulled it out. According to the surgeon, this guy never presented any sort of identification or insurance card, and demanded to pay his entire bill before he left. Usually takes some time for bills to get finalized. He paid it completely in cash and then left via a taxi. Man did not want a paper trail about this. He knew that should questions come up, he did not want there to be answers. Story 6. ER nurse. I've seen baseballs, loads of fake dongs, cans of soda, vegetables. There should be a public service announcement about using dongs in the bum. It needs to have a base. Things for women's kitties don't need them, as there's only so far it'll go. A doctor I worked with once told a man, "It's okay if you want to put things in your rectum. You just have to use the right things." Story 7. Not me, but a good friend I've known since 6th grade who is an emergency room doctor. Straight couple in their early 20s and they were using a vibrator on her. They switch. He said it was his first time, and they had lube everywhere, and the slim 6-inch vibrator disappeared all the way up inside of him while it was still on. They waited and tried to get it out on their own and finally went into the ER. They were going to wait till the batteries died, but it was getting late. My buddy tried to get it out but couldn't get it. He told the guy they might have to do surgery to get it. The guy asks my buddy if he has to go in, can he call his mom and tell her? My buddy laughs and says, "You're 22 and you get to call your mom to tell her you have a buzzing vibe in your butt that might be perforating your colon." Then my buddy remembers a guy he went to med school with who works in the same hospital. He has freaky, long, thin fingers like E.T. that might work. The other doctor gloves up and gets the vibe still buzzing out of him. Just an FYI, it really is easy for this to happen, so limit the lube on your hands. Your colon gets like a suction on it and things go in super easily, like what happened to these guys. As already discussed in this video, no, it's not a lube thing, just don't stick anything up there that doesn't have a base on it, that's all. Not worth the risk, guys, it's not. Story 8. Years ago, my nurse wife told me a man had an apple removed from his butt, but I never understood how this could be possible. I often think about this, but have never asked her for more details. I'll ask her over the table at Christmas dinner tonight. Disappointing update, I didn't ask her at Christmas dinner. There were small children around and everyone was having a nice time. It didn't seem cool to bring it up. Also, no one else started any butt stuff related conversations, providing an opening for my inquiry. I asked her today, but also told her about my post on here. She didn't feel comfortable sharing the details with you guys, so I guess you'll have to use your imaginations. Story 9. I'm a vet. Dog had eaten a whole roll of poop bags, the plastic baggies people use to clean up after their pets on walks. They unspooled in his gut and spread from stomach to colon. His owners realized what had happened when he started pooping out bags and brought him in through the ER. My coworker went in to cut him, and the scene she described was hilarious. He would intermittently strain a bit and poop out a little section of bags. Someone would tear them off and he would be okay for a bit and then poop out some more, like he was dispensing them for himself. He did great after surgery. Story 10. Not a surgeon but a vet tech. We diagnosed a cat with pancreatitis. Very dangerous. But the owner insisted the cat was constipated because he hadn't had a bowel movement in a few days. Hadn't had a bowel movement because he hadn't eaten in a week. Also very dangerous. We told her the cat needed to be hospitalized. She said she couldn't because she had a holiday in Cuba the day after. She gave our number to the poor pet sitter who called us begging to take this screaming cat off their hands. I drove to pick the cat up, and one of the worst sounds carved into my dreams is being stuck in traffic with a wailing, dying cat. Get to the clinic and we find blood and something around his butt. Well, the cat died, and we talked to the owner over the phone. She starts sobbing, asking how could this happen. Turned out before she left, she read on the internet that egg yolk up the butt would cure constipation. Whatever she had used had punctured through. I would happily beat 7 kinds of crap out of that ignorant old woman. Story 11. Not a surgeon, but wowie do I know a lot of cases involving falling on things and such other excuses. Here are just some. A Buzz Lightyear action figure, a Barbie doll, plaster of Paris. They wanted a mold of his colon. Instead, it had to be cut open as it was glued shut by the plaster. Glasses, the sight kind. Jewelry, mostly necklaces. A cucumber, which after proclaiming he fell over in the garden naked and landed on his cucumber patch, still had the Tesco wrapper on it. A light bulb. Finally, on a rather dark note, if you're a fool who slipped something up their black hole, because the butt sucks things in disturbingly well, that they can't retrieve, please, for the love of God, go to your doctor. People have died due to toxic shock due to this stuff. A guy here died of it in 2 weeks due to having a fake dong stuck up there and never went to his doctor's. Your pride can recover. Your life cannot. Story 12. My friend said she lost a butt plug up there. Shouldn't be a big deal. At first, I don't know how it's possible, but she claimed it was a little one. And given how upset she was telling the story after, I believe it. I just don't understand. But said a dude had tied her up like a frickin' mummy using duct tape. I'm not exaggerating here, her words. And dude literally breaks character and says, do you remember if I put the butt plug in or took it out? Long story short, they're both blitzed as hell, so have to call a friend to drive them to the nearest hospital to get it out, except she's embarrassed as hell and doesn't want to go. So dude shows up and the dom dude remembers, hey, aren't you a medical professional? And the guy's like, yeah. And they recruit random dude to fist her butt and recover it, and he does. But dude turns out to be a homeopath and has nothing to do with retrieving stuff from butts. She said they then ended up double-teaming her. I asked an obvious question. So, both in the butt at once? She told me not to be gross. Merry Christmas, degenerates. Story 13. A friend of mine is a surgery resident, and during one of her trauma shifts, a druggie walked in with an incandescent light bulb in his colon. It was shoved in wide part first. They were dilating the rectum in an attempt to remove it, and the resident in charge of the procedure managed to accidentally separate the metal base from the glass globe, which immediately shattered under the pressure of the colon. They had to perform a partial colectomy to resolve the complication. A foreign body per rectum is a fairly common occurrence. In my time rotating in the ER, the most common things have been yucca roots, avocados, shampoo bottles, etc. But that light bulb story is still unmatched. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen the x-ray. So there's the level of sticking something up your butt that doesn't have a base. Then there's whatever this is on a whole other level. This goes from, hey, don't do that, you could hurt yourself, to, what are you doing? Please stop. But I guess it's too late for that, huh? Anyway, this one made my body feel uncomfortable, so we're moving on. Story 14. Internal medicine physician here. Not sure why everyone thinks surgeons would be the one removing stuff from people's butts. It's most often the emergency department or us. Personally, the grossest thing I've manually disimpacted was probably a partially digested whole corn on the cob that the patient had eaten several days prior. Was just pulling out fistfuls of corn for like half an hour. But yes, I've also seen the occasional light bulb, razor blade, or fake dong lost in the abyss. Probably the best story I've heard was during residency. My co-resident spent a good amount of time searching around for a Q-tip that the patient lost up his butt while scratching up there. He told the patient he was unsuccessful at finding the Q-tip, only to be asked why in the world he was expecting to find one. Turns out he was supposed to be looking in the patient's roommate's butt. Had to go do another rectal exam next door. Must have been an awkward conversation across the curtain later that night. Say what you will about that first guy, but he trusts medical professionals, even when he does not understand what they're doing or why. Story 15. ER doc here. As previous posters suggest, it becomes hard to distinguish what's weird anymore, so judge for yourselves. 3 lemons, about a foot of broom handle, a light bulb which did not survive its adventure, so many toilet brushes inserted brush and handle first, a series of toothpicks, any number of bottles, aerosol cans, etc. My favorite case was a simple fake dong. We x-rayed it and the radiologist's report read, "There's an approximately 15 centimeter cylindrical foreign body in the large intestine, extending proximally from the rectum. Judging by the indistinct outline of the foreign body, I suspect it is still on." Story 16. Not a surgeon. Heard this from my father-in-law who used to work as an ER nurse. They had a guy come in who had gotten slammed drunk. While he was passed out, his friend stuck 2 AA batteries up the guy's dong. Not his butt, his dong. From what I remember, they actually had to cut the guy's dong open to get them out and stitch it back together. Edit. I agree with you guys. I really hope he tried to charge them. He did tell my father-in-law they would no longer be his friends. It's an incredible invasion of privacy, if not assault. I have no idea how one would pull this off. OP, what do you mean, if not assault? This is like textbook assault. What else could it be? Like, I don't know. Also, I have to admit, when you said, "I really hope he tried to charge them," I thought you were making a pun. Story 17. My grandfather was a proctologist from the 50s to 80s. He said the most difficult thing to remove was a crystal salt shaker. The most fragile was a light bulb. One year he was late to Thanksgiving because someone had decided to stuff the turkey and come to my grandpa to get unstuffed. He said the onion was difficult to remove because it kept coming apart, layer by layer. Story 18. I'm a med student who just finished his ER rotation. I was assigned a patient who was known to be one of the resident butt packers on the unit, and he was presenting with abdominal pain. I was lucky enough to be able to interview him and make some deductions and get some imaging. Looking through the abdominal x-ray with the attending, we discovered he has an excessively large potato in his butt. That's par for the course. But what was hilarious was the attending's reaction. I had been working with him for weeks, and he has a very straight face / dry sense of humor. He walked in and pulled up the x-ray, looked at the man and said, "So, we need to talk about chewing our food." I about lost it in the room, and now I tell this story every chance I get. Story 19. My dad is a doctor, and apparently they swap these stories like trading cards. Here are his favorites. 1. His doctor friend has an x-ray that he shows to everyone, trying to get them to guess what's lodged inside of someone. Spoiler, it's a bowling pin. 2. Another doctor friend has an artistic sculpture on his desk resembling a plant or a tree of sorts. It's actually a plaster from a man's insides. A party of men decided to pour plaster in a volunteer's butthole, not thinking about how to get it out. The doc had to surgically remove it, but kept it intact for a nice desk piece. Just guys being dudes, am I right? Just guys being dudes. Story 20. Surgeon, but weirdly, I've never had to do this. It was practically a rite of passage in my residency, and yet it is just to never happen on my watch. Knock on wood. And as someone who thoroughly enjoys the occasional butt banging, I have no judgment to make against these people. Apart from, do it right, you muppets. But oh, the others' stories? The vibes still going off while you're examining them, the double-ended fake dongs and frying pan handles that got stuck, the random objects they fell on in the shower, and the general impulse to tell these people, you know, there are many toys made specifically for butt stuff, and they're really not that hard to find, and they're not that expensive, and you can order them online anonymously. My favorite came from another guy in the program. I was taking over his rotation and he had to call me to tell me about it. Imagine the person with the driest sense of humor you know, and then imagine them telling you this frickin' story. "So, I got a call to go to the ER and look at this guy. He showed up there this morning from the bus station, which was right up the street from the hospital and was well known for being not the place you ever wanted to be. He said he'd been out all night partying with 2 dudes he met on Craigslist and knew they'd had a lot to drink and probably some drugs. Then he woke up at the bus station this morning, sans his pants and wallet, and his butt really hurt. Dude came to the ER and we proceeded to extract a roughly pyramid-shaped piece of concrete from his butt. Like someone shattered a chunk off one of those traffic barricade things. It even had the yellow paint on it, but the best part, man, the best part. Then his wife comes in to pick him up." Story 21. Surgical resident here. The real joy of removing a foreign body usually isn't what was removed, but it's the story you're told as to how it got there. No one just fesses up. My personal best was removing 2 vibes double-sided taped together. He admitted that he was pleasuring himself with one when it got stuck. However, he was too embarrassed at the time to get help. So he took another vibe and put double-sided tape on it in an attempt to fish the first one out. The way these 2 were taped together, it was clear they'd been approximated together well before ever inserting one. My favorite from a colleague was a man who had a carrot in his butt. This man was convinced it was an accident. He swore up and down it was, and even said that he knew how unbelievable his story sounded. He said he was making dinner, but his wife had the thermostat up in the house. He normally runs hot anyway, so this was excruciating. Adding insult to injury, he had both the stove and oven on, so it was really hot. He was afraid of sweating into the dinner, so he had to get naked. After washing the carrots, there was some water on the floor, and he slipped when the 1 in a million chance happened and a carrot went up his butt. In the OR, everyone made comments about just how convincing he was. When it was removed, it had been shaved into the shape of a dong. Bonus story of a colleague. There was a guy who had already had 2 items previously removed and came in with a third. The surgeon, after removing the third one, said, "Next time, tie a string around it or something." The very next day, he was back in the ER with a foreign body. Before the surgeon could even chastise him, the man said, "The string broke." A vibe with a broken string around it was removed about an hour later. I guarantee that guy went home and was like, I'm so excited to try this out. I never thought about this before. This is genius. I'll never have a problem again. And then immediately, string breaks and he's like, that doctor lied to me. Story 22. During my rotation in the ER in nursing school, a woman came in with abdominal pain due to foreign object. My preceptor laughed and told me to room her. Turns out she lost a 12-inch vibe in her butt the night before and failed to poop it out the next morning. The MD had a look of defeat walking out of the room after retrieving it. Apparently it happens more often than you think. The lesson learned was always buy toys with a handle on the end. Well, addendum, always buy toys with a handle on the end or something on the end if it's for butt stuff. If you're a woman and you're just using it that way, then it's gonna be fine. But the butt, it really is like a vacuum, like people say. I say this having no personal experience, but I've read a lot, so that has to count for something. Story 23. While on my surgery rotation, the weirdest thing I had to remove from a butt was a half-rotten carrot. The patient put it in thick side first, so it was very slimy and difficult to get out. We eventually had to take the patient to the operating room, and even then, we opened the OBGYN tray to fully get it out. And of course, this happened at like 3 a.m. Yeah, the surgeon was not happy to drive into work and activate the OR for this. Of course, this sparked a discussion of things people put up their butt. And the winner was the chief PA. He had seen a guy put a Barbie doll up there and it was stuck because the arms came out, so it was like a barb. It was actually considered a surgical emergency because of the hard plastic on the arms that had torn part of the rectum. He was starting to become septic. I can't imagine how the surgeon explained that to his wife. Story 24. Hey, my time to shine. I'm not a surgeon, but I'm a PA, pathologist's assistant. I get everything after it's out of someone's butt, and here are some of the more memorable items. A lemon with the UPC sticker still on it, an intact and empty Corona bottle covered with crap, a large shot glass covered in blood, an apple, a cucumber, an unopened 40-ounce bottle of Patron, a giant glass fake dong, a moldy tampon. People also stick questionable things up their dongs, and that bothers the ever-living hell out of me. This is an upsetting amount of glass items being put anywhere inside of you. Don't do that. Why would you? No, glass? No. Please, just for me, don't do it. Story 25. Was called to the ER to pull out a 750 milliliter glass bottle of extra virgin olive oil out of someone's rectum. As it turns out, the bottle was jammed far beyond the rectum. I shoved my hand into the patient's butt all the way up to my elbow to grab a hold of the bottle, but it was too slippery and proved impossible to pull out. We put a scope in to see if we could lay a snare around the bottle and yank it out, but no luck. We ended up with a colostomy. It wasn't his first time either. That olive oil is no longer extra virgin. And yet another glass object. Why are people doing this? Anyway, that was a thrilling thread, and we're done now. So I hope you enjoyed, learned something, I don't know. Either way though, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are. And I guess I'll see you in the next one.